Hi, Zizaran here. Just wanted to make a quick video about the upcoming podcast that me and Mathil are doing with Chris Wilson. This is going to be tomorrow, and it's the 18th of August and 9 p.m. GMT +1, which is also 1 p.m. PDT. And if you go to pathofexcel.com, it'll do a countdown in your local time if you're logged in. I'm pretty excited about this. So I spent a lot of time on Sunday reading questions on YouTube and also taking questions from the community, as well as obviously asking some things I'm concerned about myself and doing some follow-ups on things that I feel wasn't answered as good, and I feel like they can answer gooder. And I think honestly, a few of them we just maybe haven't communicated good enough as a community. Like, and I can talk about a little of them for just to give people an expectation of what to expect. So I feel like especially with chase items, there seems to be some sort of like miscommunication with what they think chase items are and what the community wants. Obviously for me, it's very like Chris talked about, like, it's important that you open a map and you're excited to find a headhunter or a mirror that can drop at any time. And while that is to some degree true, right? Like, those things feel amazing when they do happen. It's important for those things to be in the game. Headhunter being droppable anywhere, mirror being droppable anywhere, and having cool things that can drop, those are important. But that's not generally what most people mean when they say chase items, because I maybe I've never opened a map and thought I could get a headhunter this map. I could get a mirror this map. I've never thought that, right? And I feel a lot of people seem to be in the same boat when we talked about it on stream. So that it's not that those aren't important, but there needs to be multiple avenues. So for chase items, obviously, things like Dapper Prodigy, Chevron's wrappings, like being able to target farm things, go to a specific area to farm them is very important. Obviously, a lot of uniques being like outdated, some bosses not having that good drops, like Uber, Zeri, Maven, etc. are things we're going to talk about as well. And there's a lot of things that I tried to especially listen to a lot of different players. So there are a lot of things in the spreadsheet that I don't necessarily think is the main important thing, or that maybe I think is wrong. But it was a lot of people were asking it. So I was like, it's not, I don't want the interview to just be things that are important to me. Once we were finished, we had, I think it's over a little bit over 50 questions. And the common consensus was we were asking the most important things. There's not much left out that are like very big issues, right? So that's like the main thing we want to talk about. And also, like, I really I feel like there's been miscommunications on build diversity. So we spent a few hours on stream looking at this, and we were looking at, obviously we only have some limited numbers, but we looked at like PoE Ninja, and we looked at like level 19 and 95, 95 to 100, depending on when in the league we could look at it, right? And we used, I can't remember what the website was called, but there's a website that like saves old snapshots so we could go look at other ones. And we asked the community, because a lot of people were like outraged when GGG said, well, build diversity is really good right now. And this is something I want to talk about, because they're actually not wrong. And what I mean by that is the community says build diversity, and we're talking about something else than what GGG hears. Because we started looking at what the community said was good build diversity leagues, like Harvest, and Ritual, and older leagues and stuff, and Legion. And they actually had a lot worse build diversity than the current league, if we're talking about the same thing. So build diversity is obviously like different, the amount of different builds being played, right? Like, let's say the most played build having 4% played, that would be great build diversity. That's obviously not going to happen. And I'm sure there's a lot of people getting really annoyed by what I've been saying so far. But what I mean, and what I really want to emphasize and talk about on the podcast, is that generally what most people are unhappy about is build viability. And that's like a point I really want to drive home, because when we keep saying build diversity, GGG look at other leagues and we're like, well, I mean, it seems better now than before. In that league where people were happy, 40% were playing Cyclone Slayer, or 27% were playing Baeclast. So if that build diversity was okay, well, it's better now. So I kind of get where they're coming from. So to elaborate, it's basically build diversity is probably always going to bad. It's always going to be bad. There's a couple of reasons for that. The less time you have as a player, the less you want to gamble with your time, right? So that's why you'll see a large amount of people will make at least one build that they know is solid. Like maybe there's a lot of content creators playing this, like, you know, Steel Mage and Zizaran both playing Spectral Shield Throw. I'm probably not going to fuck it up, right? They don't have a lot of time, so they don't want to gamble with their time and be like, I'm healing Oak. This doesn't feel good. So because of that, you get a lot of people, no matter what, playing very, very sturdy builds, especially early on. But when people have stopped playing those builds, they're still in the statistics, right? Because people didn't want to gamble with their time. So let's say Spectral Shield Throw. A lot of people are going to have Spectral Shield Throw as a high level character in the build statistics list. And that never goes away, even if people aren't playing it anymore. But what's really, really bad right now is is even worse on hardcore, which isn't really an important factor. But what's even worse right now is it's very hard to make a creative build work, right? It's very hard to make like a non-meta build work compared to before. So build viability, I would say, is at an all-time low. You're very pigeonholed into like dodge or a block to feel good while mapping. And you can sacrifice defenses on softcore, but the more and more we talk to a lot of people on softcore, people generally don't like dying on softcore. They do want to have decent amount of defenses on softcore, at least that they aren't dying regularly. That's what I really want to drive home, that like build viability is quite low. And I think it's a very important distinction to make, because we want to make sure that GGG are on the same page as we are, right? We want to be talking about the same thing. And build diversity, that's not really important. It's important that people feel like they have the ability to play what build they want to. They don't want to feel like, well, that build just it's not doable anymore. They killed it. And in Harvest and Ritual, like people brought up as good build diversity, they had fairly good build viability, even though they had worse build diversity. So even though like more unique builds were possible, less than ever people were playing, but they had the ability to. And generally, I think that is very, very important. Hopefully I explained that well enough. It's just a very important distinction that we need a lot more like low-end builds and creative builds being doable. So I'm going to try to explain that. Other than that, like defense is in a very, very bad spot. And I want to explain and talk a little bit about Harvest. This was another thing I talked about that had like a very, very positive reaction to when I try to explain it. And I try to explain why Harvest was so possible, or so positively received. And something Chris actually touched on that he actually got a lot of negative criticism for. But he's actually absolutely right, and most people seem to agree when I pointed it out. And that was, he said something like, when you have a perfect character, people stop playing, right? People aren't grinding for just currency then anymore. And he's actually very right here. It was maybe not formulated as good, or people were angry so they misreceived it. That doesn't really matter. But what he means is, whenever people feel like they don't have an upgrade in sight, they stop playing. And that's not necessarily perfect gear, because this is completely different whether you're a casual player or a no-lifer, but this is always the same thing. And the important thing here, which is what Chris touched on, and he said, when you have perfect gear, you stop playing. But it's not so much perfect gear. It's when you no longer have a realistic update in sight. It's actually part of the reason why I no longer play Trade League, because what I would do is I would buy really, really good gear for my character, then start playing it. And then I'd be like, well, now I actually already have really good gear, and I'm already one-shotting pretty much everything. And I would have to put a large amount of work in to get to the next update on my gear. It would be a large amount of effort for me to see an improvement. And that, no matter where you are, whether you're a no-lifer or a casual player, that is when it starts feeling bad. And that is a big problem right now for a lot of people, because they don't feel like they can realistically upgrade their own gear. They pretty much have to buy things. And it's very, very important whenever you're able to get yourself like often upgrades, like you're able to like log on, grind, and you are improving. You're improving something. That feels really good. That's what people keep playing for. Because I agree to a degree with what Chris said. Like, I've never played a character at level 100. Once that character hits level 100, I am done. I don't want to see that character anymore. And same with like ones I do have. You know, I never go for perfect gear, but I go for like reasonably really good gear. Once I have that, I'm like pretty done with this character now. I'll either sometimes use it to grind out stuff for other characters or just make a new one. So having realistic upgrades for lots of different types of players is important. So obviously Harvest is very scary there because it can very quickly, when utilized correctly, get you to the point where you don't feel like you have realistic upgrades anymore. But obviously there's a lot of upsides too, right? You don't have to trade with people. You feel more in control of making your own gear. So I understand why Harvest is a big problem. But these are all some of the things I really want to talk about and make sure that they understand where a lot of the community are coming from. Hopefully, if you look through the spreadsheet of all the questions, I want to make sure a lot of things get heard. People seem fairly happy with the questions, both like new players, mid players, and just everyone. So hopefully I can do a good job of representing a lot of people. Obviously, my playstyle doesn't really represent a lot of people, so I try to take a lot of questions that aren't really necessarily important to me. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Again, it's tomorrow, so come tune in, check it out. It'll be me and Mathil. We're gonna do our best to represent as many people as possible and talk to Chris. Thanks guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the channel. Sub if you like the video. More importantly, try to die less than I do.